Many different types of cases may need to be reported to DCS. In the following case, a mother called the DCS abuse hotline after she learned that a 10-year-old neighbor, Brad, had been forcing her 6-year-old son, Sam, to put his mouth on Brad's penis. Sam was close friends with Brad's younger brother, Tim. Sam told his mom that Brad forced them to put their mouths on his penis and on each other's penises. Sam also told his mother that he's very afraid because Brad has threatened to beat him up if he told anybody. Sam's mother had already spoken to Brad's mother, Sandy, who said that this kind of behavior has been an issue in the past and that Brad has been punished and told not to do it anymore. Sandy didn't know what else to do. In Brad's case, DCS investigated and discovered that Sandy was having significant difficulty controlling Brad's overall behavior. In addition, she worked the second shift and did not have reliable child care. Brad's brother Tim clearly stated that he was afraid to be alone with Brad. In consideration of these issues, along with the characteristics of Brad's behaviors, Brad's mother and the DCS worker decided it would be best if Brad went to live with his grandparents temporarily. Brad and his family were referred to a mental health provider for assessment and treatment. Brad's team, which includes his therapist, the DCS worker, and his mother and grandparents, met to discuss a safety plan.
Okay, well, thank you everyone for coming today. I really appreciate your availability. I know bringing you all together, is sometimes a challenge. Let me just lay out what we're trying to accomplish today. We want to talk about safety. And when we talk about safety, what that's meant to do is just to make sure everybody's healthy and everybody's safe. And so that's what kind of the focus of our time today, okay?
Okay.
All right. One of the things that we want to do is come up with a very specific plan about what safety looks like, almost like we can picture it day to day, and it's maybe even a plan that we can kind of share with one another. We can kind of put it up on refrigerators if we need to remind ourselves, have family meetings about, let's remember, this is our plan to keep each other safe.
Because keep in mind, our primary goal is for all of the children and families that we're working with, safety, permanency, and well-being. So those are the three things that that are our primary goals, and we want to ensure that all of the children that we're working with in families reach those goals.
What does the permanency one mean exactly?
That they're in a home that's safe, that's long-term, and that's meeting all of that child's needs. And I personally feel that for Brad and Tim, that permanency should be with mom.
Yeah.
With you.
One of the topics that Brad's team discussed was privacy and how to appropriately respect one another's space.
One of the things we'd like to add to that, and maybe we can talk to Brad about, and you all can have a discussion with him, is it's about knocking, but it's also about Brad being able to hear from you all saying, it's okay to come in now, it's okay to, so he's knocking and someone's kind of giving that verbal, yep, it's okay to come in. What we want to teach is that Brad not only kind of asks to kind of go into someone's boundaried space, but that other people kind of give the green light.
In addition to privacy, Brad's therapist stressed the importance of everyone covering up while at home.
I wanted to ask you all, how do you feel about kind of one of the next steps in our safety plan, which is really modeling healthy kind of boundaries with regards to our clothing and being naked in the home. So one of the things.
I don't run around naked.
Yeah,
I don't
yeah.
You didn't teach me like
I
that.
certainly did not.
Yeah. Well,
We're
one of the
pretty
things.
private.
You're pretty
I
private.
know
Okay. Okay. Some different families have different ways of kind of looking at that, and so one of the things that we want to make sure we communicate to the kids is how important it is for us to cover ourselves up. And so it kind of starts with the parents modeling and sharing, hey, when we're kind of around as a family and we have visitors here, it's really important that we're wearing our clothes and that we're covering our privates. It's really what we're trying to do is almost really kind of be over safe by communicating. It's a teaching opportunity. It's not about whether boxers or not are okay. This isn't about judging how your family kind of does that. what we're trying to teach the kids, just through the use of wearing robes or even kind of putting on clothes when we go from room to room, is really to slow the process down and just teach the point to the kids. It's important to keep our boundaries, because that's one of the things that why we're here today. Is just to really remember that keeping the clothes on. So Mom, just to answer your question, it's not a that's a good thing or a bad thing, and this plan is not meant to kind of do that at all. What it's meant to do is just do some really good teaching about covering ourselves and privates and so forth.
The team also discussed the possibility and steps required for reunification between Brad and his brother.
Dr. John, I have a quick question. As it relates to visitation, Brad was just recently placed in the home of his grandmother, Mrs. Wilson. Right. Is it too soon to talk about visitation with his younger brother, Tim? Or is that something that you and Tim's therapist will work out?
Yeah, good question. So what we want to do is make sure that Tim is meeting with his therapist and talking a little bit about how he's feeling, some of his concerns, or he may be doing just fine. Let's kind of take the yellow light and let's be careful about that. What I mean by a yellow light is, let's proceed forward with him seeing his therapist and kind of talking about some of the concerns. Let's make sure Brad can show some safety, not only with this plan, but just with himself. And then maybe the therapist and I will have some discussions about how we can carefully bring those two together in a way that I think this whole team can feel good about. We want to make sure that they have a relationship. That's important. And we don't want to, but we want to do that when people feel safe and feel comfortable.
Exactly.
The team next discussed monitoring the violent and sexually explicit content Brad was exposed to.
But Mom, you had shared about the videos and so forth. One of the things we want to make sure we do in the plan is that we're really monitoring very carefully what's on TV, what's on the video games. And this can be really a challenging thing because the kids can kind of, jump into the family room, start playing a game, and we're off on a phone call. And so one of the things we want to make sure we do is kind of have a regular review of what are they watching and what are they listening to.
Well, I'm worried about the internet.
And the internet?
I don't know how I can watch him, constantly.
Yeah.
I don't know how to do, those parental controls or anything like that. I do have the internet, but I never even thought about
Maybe that's
accessing.
something that I, during one of my visits, I can assist you with, because I am
Well, I
familiar with
certainly
the
would appreciate it because I
parental
don't-
controls and how that works. So
Can
that
you
is something.
do my house too?
Sure,
Yeah.
no problem.
Okay.
During the meeting, timelines were also addressed. Oftentimes, there is not a simple solution for these situations.
How long is it going to be that Mom has to help like this and be so tied down?
Right.
I mean, what are we looking at?
Well, as Dr. John mentioned, he and Tim's therapist will get together.
Yeah.
We'll continue to work together as long as they're working with you all as a family and come up with a plan. Just like we're developing a safety plan here for Brad, I'm sure Tim therapist will do the same thing, and the two will come together and work on a plan for you all as a family, so we can start the reunification process if that's going to be in the best interest of the kids.
Brad's therapist and DCS caseworker also outlined some of the difficulties that might arise with the plan and stressed the importance of seeing things through to the end.
Let me just share one other piece that I think is important as we go forward. Is we talked about having a plan, reviewing the plan. The last part is the plan. Sometimes we walk away and we're like, there's a lot of anxiety, but I got to get all this right.
Right.
And so
I'm already thinking that.
Yeah.
That's a lot of pressure.
We want to put all of our effort into communicating and doing the plan as well as possible. But here's the other thing I want you to notice. I want you to notice situations when the plan is really difficult or challenging. Let me give you an example. Say Brad goes out in the backyard just to shoot baskets, okay? And one of the other kids maybe is playing in a sandbox away from Brad. And the phone rings, and you realize, I've got to go in and answer the phone. That's a situation where we've talked about making sure that you're watching Brad and keeping eye-to-eye supervision for right now, when the plan would be challenged. What I want you to do is notice those situations, and then let's come back and talk about them.
At the conclusion of the meeting, Brad's DCS worker and therapist emphasized that this was a process and not a quick fix. It would take time and dedication, but assured Brad's mother and grandmother that they had finished the hardest part by asking for help.
But this is just one meeting among others that you'll have with Dr. John, and he'll continue to work through this process as you continue to take steps toward moving the boys and reunifying your boys with you.
Okay.
So,
All right.
okay.
All right.
Well, I think this was a good meeting, and of course I will be, like I mentioned before, visiting you guys, and at that time we'll talk about an additional plan to kind of help map out how the boys will return back to your care.
Okay.
So, I mean, like I mentioned before, you've taken the biggest step. So the rest of them will just fall